Persona is on fire, with Persona 5 The Phantom X bringing in huge engagement, along with Sega accidentally revealing massive sales figures for their Persona franchise. It's safe to say that the future of Persona has never looked brighter. On that same note, Sega's newly released content pipeline for the next coming fiscal years is giving fans some answers regarding the newly announced Persona 4 revival. But what about Persona 6? We have a lot to go over, including some promising news for Sega and Atlus games on the Switch too, so run over to that like button if you can't wait to return to the quaint streets and landscapes of rural Inaba. And treat yourself to some new swag and flavors at Supps by using my affiliate code to save 10% off your total order. Details linked in the description. The Persona 5 series keeps on expanding, and with Persona 5 The Phantom X having launched across numerous regions outside of Asia last week on PC and mobile, we are seeing huge engagement with this latest free-to-play spin-off title, debuting with a peak player count on Steam several thousand players higher than the most successful Persona game of all time, Persona 5 Royal. While these numbers are still shy of Persona 3 Reload's debut numbers on Steam, this information confirms that the latest Persona 5 spin-off title is seeing incredible engagement. And with this being a free-to-play gacha game that has already proven to have longevity when it released in select countries in Asia last year, I'm confident we'll continue to see promising numbers for this game in the coming years, should the game receive more content. The fact that this game is also out on mobile is another enormous market that Sega and Atlus are tapping into, so sales prospects for this title, along with Atlus's previous statements about being interested in bringing the game to consoles, are very promising. I've put in a few hours into the Steam release myself, and while these free-to-play gacha games are nowhere near my cup of tea, I've had some enjoyment with it. But let me know in the comments if any of you have been playing this game and if you think it is a worthy spin-off of the Persona 5 series. Speaking of Persona 5, Persona 5 has done incredibly well for Sega, so much so that Persona 5 Royal is the company's single best-selling game of this decade, and by a good margin at that. That's right, let's talk about the sales numbers for not just Persona 5 Royal, but for the rest of the Persona series and Atlus's other JRPGs, as we can really see why Atlus is going all out on bringing this series to the masses. After failing to hastily pull some files in a presentation for the Sega Sammy management meeting on June 18th last month, some users were able to secure the sales data of the highest grossing titles Sega has released over the past 5 years. And as we can see right here at the very top, Persona 5 Royal is absolutely killing it. Fiscal year 2020 saw the release of the game exclusively on the PS4, but over in fiscal year 23, we see the number really start to take off again, exceeding the initial launch of the PS4 version a few years prior by going multi-platform, releasing on not just the previous and current generation of consoles, but also on Steam and even the Switch, where the game has performed exceedingly well on, outperforming many third-party titles that are on that platform. Better yet, just look at the tail of the sales of this game from fiscal year 2023 to the present, as the sales across these years have sat comfortably over 1.5 million units. I guess it wouldn't be crazy to think that this momentum for Persona 5 Royal would continue to have this kind of tail going forward, further extending this juggernaut to even greater heights. I mean, this game is single-handedly outperforming Sonic, the face of Sega after all, and with a tail like Persona 5 Royal is having, I wouldn't be surprised to see this game eclipse a number of the highest grossing Sonic games on this list combined. And this is just Persona 5 Royal, mind you, as Persona 3 Reload, having the distinction of being the fastest selling Persona game of all time, is sitting just north of 2 million units sold. And that in itself is a bit perplexing, I might add, seeing as Persona 5 Royal is just killing the competition, but with a reputation as being one of, if not the greatest JRPGs ever released, that certainly goes a long way. It's also not a remake like Persona 3 Reload is, and with Royal being the latest mainline game and also being the first game in the series to truly go multi-platform, I guess it starts to make sense. Gives you an idea of why Sega and Atlus are going crazy with continuing the Persona 5 series by giving it yet another spin-off that tries to emulate some of the highest grossing games in the free-to-play genre, right? Now, as far as last year's Metaphor ReFantazio, which happened to be Atlus's fastest selling game at launch, that game has sold more than 2 million copies, an awesome accomplishment for a game that has been out for under a year. So it'll be interesting to see how well this title performs in the coming years. And who knows, maybe Persona 3 Reload will pick up its sales pace as we get deeper into Persona 4 Revival's marketing phase. But yeah, let's give these remakes some time to shine, but also note the obvious. By the time Persona 6 finally gets revealed, the hype will be so through the roof that we're likely to be looking at a new king of Sega, whenever they get around to announcing it. Speaking of the future of the company, Sega provided a content pipeline for fiscal years 2027 and 2028 that gives us some insight into the release of Persona 4 Revival, and maybe even narrows down the potential for seeing Persona 6. Briefly touching up on fiscal year 2026, we've got Sonic Racing Crossworlds and Football Manager 2025 being the bigger games to launch later this year, with Raito Remastered listed here as a premier game to launch this fiscal year. Perhaps most exciting is the small text at the bottom, indicating that a number of titles are being planned to release for the Switch 2. And if any of the several rumors and leaks are to be correct, we're likely going to see Switch 2 versions of Persona 3 Reload and Metaphor ReFantazio revealed and released, with murmurs in the industry hinting at a possible Nintendo Direct later this month. Definitely something to keep an eye on, and it is hugely beneficial for Sega and Atlus, as I'm sure we're going to be seeing some good sales of these games that haven't yet arrived for the Switch, even though they are releasing for the Switch 2. Moving on to fiscal year 2027, which denotes launches between April 1st, 2026 and March 31st, 2027, and fiscal year 2028 while we're at it, which is the same except a year shifted beyond, Sega plans to release 4 or more titles within these years, with plans to release several new titles of major IPs, which, of course, is great news for Persona fans hopeful for the launch of Persona 6. More Like a Dragon and Shin Megami Tensei games wouldn't hurt either. But before we get into Persona 6, at the bottom of the page are titles that are slated to be released in or after fiscal year 2027, which are the 2 latest recently revealed Sega games, being Persona 4 Revival and Ryu Ga Gotoku's Stranger Than Heaven. This gives us an understanding that if Atlus plans to reveal Persona 4 Revival next year in 2026 to punctuate the series' 30th anniversary, that we'd essentially be looking at a time frame from April 1st until the end of the year, which I'm thinking will be quite likely. Not having any major Persona game to launch next year on the anniversary would be quite something, I might add. And for us hopeful fans, fingers crossed that an announcement of Persona 6 will happen next year as well, which, along with Persona 4 Revival, would be an incredible year for not just Persona as a series, but also Sega going forward, as Persona 6 is exceedingly likely to generate mainstream appeal beyond the likes we've seen of Persona 5 Royal. Just me being hopeful, but again, there is still a chance that both Persona 4 Revival and Stranger Than Heaven could be moved into fiscal year 2028, which would mean release dates in 2027 or 2028. Yeah, not fun to think about, but it's a possibility that we need to bring up, as game delays do happen frequently, with Sega confirming that the release timing for these titles is still to be decided. It really has me reflecting on all the leaks and rumors about Persona 6, having been nearly complete as of late last year with the studio focusing on localization. I mean, just how far off is this game? Like I said earlier, games do get delayed quite a bit. Capcom confirmed just as much recently with Resident Evil Requiem, a game coming out on Resident Evil's own 30th anniversary next year, that the game received multiple iterations and delays, once even being touted as an open-world multiplayer game. I know it would be awesome to get that next mainline Persona game on its 30th anniversary, just as Resident Evil will be getting Resident Evil 9 for its own anniversary, but let's hope that an announcement for this insanely hyped game is part of Sega's near-term pipeline. Stay up to date with the latest on Persona 6 by following me over to this video where we go into literally every single rumor and leak the title has seen to date. And that's all I have for you here, my friends. I'll see you all real soon in the next one.